When I was growing up, one of the clearest memories that I have of my mother is her sitting in the dark for about an hour in the morning before anyone else got up, drinking her coffee and smoking her cigarettes. My mom, like so many other women of her generation, both worked and ran the household. She had rheumatoid arthritis, and so she was in pretty chronic pain. She didn't generally do most of the household chores. My sister and I did most of those, and my dad sometimes cooked and usually grocery shopped. I remember once as a teenager, probably when she was complaining, asking what in fact she did around the house, because Carrie and I did most of the chores in my perception. And she practically yelled at me, "I manage everything." Now, as a mother, I get that on a deep level. The level of emotional labor that goes into keeping everyone's schedules straight and remembering that we are out of bread and which day the cat gets his medicine and which store has the good oat milk is, in fact, a lot of work. My mom, like so many people before and since, managed by resting, by carving out some time every day that was just hers, time that she would rather spend awake than sleeping, because for her, the deliciousness and solitude of that time in the dark was even more important than sleep. Tricia Hersey says, "Your body is a site of liberation. It doesn't belong to capitalism. Love your body. Rest your body. Move your body. Hold your body." Tricia Hersey is a Black feminist theologian and founder of the NAP Ministry. It's a thing. An organization that spreads the theology that humans, especially humans who have traditionally been oppressed, need to claim the art of rest. That rest is resistance to what she terms grind culture. The idea that humans are only valuable when they are productive, and that we are responsible for upholding the capitalist system that tells us we must constantly do more and be more. As the descendant of enslaved people, Reverend Hersey knows deeply in her bones that her ancestors were not allowed to rest. Their labor, their very bodies, were not seen as their own. She writes of rest as a global movement for all to be able to tap back into our dignity. Rest is our divine right. It is not a luxury of privilege. Rest is as natural as breathing and waking up. Rest is part of our nature. Resting is about getting people back to their truest selves, to what they were before capitalism robbed you of your ability to just be. Rest is anything that slows you down enough to allow your body and mind to connect in that deepest way. As a culture, we have a pretty screwed up idea about what is important, about what we deserve. We have advertisements that tell us to buy a Mercedes-Benz because you've earned it. We live in a culture that tells us we need to earn dessert by burning off enough calories, that we're being bad or lazy if we give in to pleasure, even pleasure as simple as a cookie or a nap. In this time of year, where we go into the nourishing dark, how could we look at all of this differently? How could we sink into the fallow time of the year and adjust how we think about activity in a way that could have profound benefits for our lives? Historically, in the era of subsistence farming, there were times of the year that were more busy and times that were less busy. When the sun rises at 7:30 and sets at 4:30, you have a lot of darkness to contend with. And in the era before electric lights, you spent most of that time inside around a fire with your family. Sure, you still had to cook meals and do the dishes and the daily activities, but there was less farm work that needed to be done. The year had a cycle of rest built into it. In our modern lives, we complain about driving to work in the dark and driving home in the dark, but we still work the same hours year-round, except for maybe a couple of weeks of vacation if we're lucky. We push through the fallow time, filling the darkest weeks of the year with holiday gatherings and pageants and parties. But as Tricia Hersey says, we need rest. And rest is more than just napping, even though napping is part of it. In Hersey's words, reimagining rest is an ethos of slowing down, connecting, and reimagining. The work of the Nap Ministry starts and ends with the power of people experiencing in their bodies what intentional, connected rest feels like. I'm going to jump in for just a second and tell you about the Nap Ministry. The Nap Ministry started out as one gathering where Ms. Hersey brought yoga mats and blankets and pillows. She had this curated playlist, and she literally invited people to come in and lay down and daydream or nap or sleep. And people found the experience so profound that they asked her to do this again and again and again. She has this whole set of blankets and pillows and yoga mats that she brings around to different places. Rest can mean meditation or daydreaming. It can be listening to music and just listening, not playing music while you're doing the dishes and powering through and doing everything else. It could mean reading a poem and thinking about it, or going for a gentle walk and noticing things. It could mean laughing deeply with a friend or taking a long bath or shower. It is only when we have time for rest that we can daydream. Anna Quindlen writes about this a lot. She notes that the lack of time to be bored will come back to haunt us because boredom is where creativity comes from. I imagine some of you have heard about Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. The short version, it's not going well. In an effort to make Twitter earn more money, Mr. Musk laid off more than half of the employees. My favorite result of that was he laid off this whole department, and then nobody had access to key cards anymore and couldn't get into the building. But they'd fired everybody who programs the key cards. Entire departments were eliminated, often with no warning or planning. Folks simply were locked out of their company emails and other communication channels, sometimes even before receiving the email that said they'd been laid off. And if you have ever done 2 or 3 or 5 people's jobs at work, you know that it is incredibly challenging to be the one left behind as well. And so, in his infinite wisdom, on November 16th at midnight, Elon Musk sent out an email to all remaining employees of Twitter, and I quote, "Going forward, To build a breakthrough Twitter 2.0 and succeed in an increasingly competitive world, we will need to be extremely hardcore. This will mean working long hours at high intensity. Only exceptional performance will constitute a passing grade. Employees were asked to commit to giving up all semblance of work-life balance or to quit with 3 months of severance. About half of them quit. Good for them. This is not about not wanting to work. This is about wanting work to be part of your life, not the be-all, end-all. This is about wanting and needing time to rest, to be with your family and friends, to be a whole human being. Nowhere in the middle of all of this is Elon Musk saying that those who stay will be better compensated. That's not happening. The only reward to staying is avoiding the fear of being unemployed. What would you do if you were not afraid? What would you do with your one wild and precious life if you had the space to dream, the space to rest, if you had the time to imagine the possibilities? When we imagine the possibilities, we are dreaming. When we allow ourselves to dream, we can try new things. Contrary to what scary movies tell us, there is nothing inherently frightening about darkness. Without the dark, without the quiet, fallow time, we can't see the stars. It is only in darkness that we can see the light that is always there, just sometimes overshadowed. In our opening reading, Dick Gilbert says, "We forget the nourishing dark at our peril. There is mystery in the dark to be probed. There is the adventure of that which cannot be known, cannot be seen, can only be experienced in the soul. There is deepness in the dark, impenetrable and inviting." And so, my friends, as promised, I am going to invite you to join me for a short guided meditation. And I hope that it may show you a glimpse of what you might need to discover in the dark. I'd like to invite you to settle into your seat here in the church, or if you are at home, into your couch, or lie on your floor, wherever you might be right now. If it's comfortable for you, I invite you to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. Can we bring the lights down, Sojourner? Thanks. Now I'd like you to imagine that you are sitting in a comfortable chair around a campfire with just a few of your favorite people. If you've never been camping, that's okay. Maybe just imagine what it might feel like. Campfire is crackling. Maybe you're toasting marshmallows or sipping tea or cocoa. Can you feel the heat from the fire on part of your body? Can you smell the smoke? What do you taste or smell? What do you hear? Now I'd like you to imagine that you're moving away from your friends around the campfire. Perhaps you've heard an owl or another bird calling to you away from the fire. You have a cozy sweatshirt on. You grab a flashlight just in case but you realize that it is easier to see without that piercing light, and so you just follow the sound out. As you walk into the darkness, surrounded by trees, what do you see? What is waiting for you? And I invite you to continue walking until you come out from the trees. Perhaps you end up in a field, or on the shore, or a lake, or river somewhere. In your mind's eye, I invite you to look up and notice the sky full of stars. It's so crowded with tiny dots of light, you couldn't count them if you tried. And you see a cloudy band of white that you know must be the Milky Way, covering a soft band halfway across the sky. This is your imagination, and so there's no pain in your neck as you look up to the sky. You're not afraid of falling. You know, if you want to sit on the ground, you can get up again easily. And I invite you just to look at the stars for a while, noticing what, if anything, you hear or feel or smell. Trees or meadows or mudflats, a stream or the lapping of water. Your eyes are looking softly at the sky, when suddenly a giant meteor shoots across the sky. "Oh," escapes your mouth as a smile overtakes your face. Do you make a wish? What do you wish for? You sit a little while longer, watching the meteors or looking softly around you for signs of life. What comes to you? What are you drawing to you out here in the midst of the quiet and nurturing dark? It's time to return to your friends, and you slowly get up and make your way back to them. What do you tell them about your experience? I invite you to return slowly to awareness. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Open your eyes gently. I am going to invite you to turn and share with a neighbor anything that you would like to share from your experience. And if you are on Zoom, you are welcome to talk about it with a person you're watching with, or you're welcome to type it into the chat. This is called A Blessing for the Dark by Laurel Gray. When the facade of your so-called worth crumbles, when you find yourself lost in the dark, I hope you take your time. I hope you listen for the sound of snow. Try to taste the sun as it casts sharp shadows over you. Remember, there is space here. Your body still knows how to breathe, how to heal, how to recall your wholeness. When the facade of your so-called worth crumbles, I hope you tell the truth about the wreckage, at least to yourself, and maybe when the time comes, to someone else. I hope you dig deep enough into your faith that you find fertile ground under the rubble of what was never enough. The immaculate lie of conditional love, I hope you let it fall. For you have always been made of star sparks and darkness, a being held in balance, born of the very mystery of life. When the facade of your so-called worth crumbles, when you find yourself lost in the dark, I hope you let it wash over you. I hope you remember parts of yourself you didn't know were lost, and I hope you welcome them home amidst that echoing silence in that still open place. I hope you plant yourself beneath the rubble and wait for spring, for the lavender twilight to remind you of the peace you found in the dark. May it be so, dear ones. Blessed be, and amen.